Let's hold my internet. Awesome. Hello. Welcome to October. Welcome to October. It is the first Monday in the last quarter of 2023. Alicia, just let me know, like, how are you feeling about that? Like, let's just start there.
So first of all, the year has zoomed by. It was like, oh, January, and now we're like, we blinked and we're all the way in October, Q4. Q4 is actually one of my favorite times of the
Okay.
year.
Tell us more.
Um, Primarily because I love the holidays. Just because people are just a little kinder. Just I don't know. It's the nostalgia. I love the holidays. So Q4 for me also too is the reason it's one of my favorites beyond just the holidays is because that's my time to like forecast, to really like identify what do I need to do, how have I done this year, what are the ways in which I failed real bad, so how can I make sure that next year it's not as big of a failure, or if let's say it still is as big of a failure next year, what did I learn from it that I can at least take to grow to maybe do a little bit better. So I'm feeling like, dang, we got here quick, but also like, ooh, okay, now it's another opportunity, because for me, I feel like every single day that you wake up is another opportunity for you to figure it out, for you to change, adjust, shift, breathe, stretch, shake, let it go if you need to. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's how I'm feeling. What about you? How you feeling?
Yeah.
Q4 already.
Listen, I love that. I love that. Like every experience is an opportunity for continuous improvement. So I love that. Forecasting is definitely big. For me, I'm feeling excited and expectant. Like this word expectant has been just top of mind for me, I would say for the last couple of weeks. And so I don't know exactly what Q4 is going to hold. You know, we have a Q4 strategy, Q4 plans, all these tactics, all the to-do lists in the world, all the post-it notes are here, you know, so things are moving, but I'm
Yeah.
also looking forward to really turning up the heat on working smarter in this
Yes.
quarter. So really focusing in on, you know, even from a team perspective, like
Hmm.
what are my superpowers? Like what are the
Yeah.
things that only I can do? I was making a CEO tasks list today, and it's like, girl, three-fourths of this list are operational tasks. Like they're not tasks that only you can do. So for me,
Yep.
it's making that transition in my leadership, growing the team, and creating space for more women to connect and really kind of recenter. So I've been having this retreat on my mind, and it was not really in the plan. So I'm kind of getting the side off from my team, but at the same time, I feel like it's one of the things that are just like, you know, sometimes as a leader, you have to go with your instinct and go with your gut. And so, you know, the math isn't mathing right now, but I believe the math is going to math.
Because it
And
can math. I mean, there are things we can do. Okay.
okay,
But
and that's the
things.
plan. That's the plan to bring
Yeah.
women leaders together in December for a time to, you know, I'm just what do the young people call it? Manifesting. I'm just putting this out here, okay? But my vision is to have women coming together, women leaders, for a
Hmm.
time to like really just take a deep breath and like get
Okay.
centered, be refreshed, be
Yeah.
reinvigorated, because that sense of burnout is very strong.
Very
Especially
real.
clients we've been working with. And so it's that piece, but also it's the intentionality of like, who do I want to become as we approach 2024, instead of all of these endless lists of things to do, and then how do we work in a smarter way towards that. So I'm expected. I'm excited. Hey, Kiera, thank you for joining us. Yes, I listen. I don't know. Like it has been something that has been top of mind for me. I taught on it last night. So for
Yeah.
those of you who might not know, I'm happy to drop it into the chat. But on Sundays, I lead a prayer call for women. For women, for leaders and entrepreneurs. We have some men that join us too every Sunday, usually at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that was what we talked about last night too. So I'm glad that y'all are here. Alicia, I'm glad that you're here. We're going to dive into a little conversation though around how can you, as a leader, this quarter, October the 2nd, if you're watching this live, if you're watching this on the replay, let us know where you're tuning in from so we can shout you out. But how can you leverage your voice this quarter in an authentic way? So, Alicia, what are your thoughts kind of as you think about and maybe reflect on how your voice, and especially when you think about your authenticity as a leader has kind of evolved this year? Like, what does that look like for you?
So this year for me, I've been really, really focused on figuring out how and when to use my voice. Because one of the things about authenticity, like we were saying, I said a while back, but I really mean y'all last week, um, is using emotional intelligence to learn when and how you can use it and leverage it. And so for me, going into Q4, it's just getting super clear on when should I speak up? When is it not worth the time, energy, or effort? What will move the needle forward? What will serve as a detractor to whatever I want that growth to look like or to be? And then also, where do I need to be as far as like physical positioning to ensure that when I do speak, that not only am I, yes, being authentic, but again, that the level of impact that I hope to make, I'm actually making it. So for me, that's been a huge focus and a huge learning for this year, because I've always been, if anyone who knows me, they know, like, okay, if it's one thing I will do is say something. I've never been the quiet child. Even though I'm an introvert, I've never been like super quiet. If I feel like something doesn't make sense, or hey, there's a better way we can do this, I will say something. But now I'm really, really getting to the place and space to where I'm understanding, like, hey, even if I can say something, does it make sense to do so in this time, in this space, in this medium? So that's my biggest learning for this year about using my authentic voice.
Yeah, I love that. To me, the words emotional intelligence come to mind because oftentimes it's that understanding. And I feel like, there's so many books on emotional intelligence. I believe there's some great assessments on EQ and all of the things. And also, I believe it's one of those skills that grows as you gain experience and spend more time in your field. And sometimes it's one of those things that's hard to describe because you learn and gain wisdom in terms of the unwritten rules of your craft, your industry, your team, your organization as you spend time doing the thing. So I love that. For me, I would add to that taking time to rest. And I know that may sound counterintuitive when it comes to using your voice, because I think we think of like leveraging your voice as like always being on, especially for women leaders. It's like, the always speaking up and not missing the moment and sharing what you think. And I think that's important. What I found this year is in taking time to intentionally rest, I've noticed two things. One, I have been intentional about what I've been taking in during the rest season. So, like books that I've been reading, podcasts that I've been listening to, but also it's helped me to become even more clear on my message by noticing what is not in the market when I'm quiet. So like I think my like the confidence in the perspective that I bring to certain topics is so much more grounded in an even deeper level of authenticity because when I'm not speaking and I'm listening to and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's what you bring, Brittany. That's what you add. That's the perspective that you bring to the conversation because the things that I'm thinking that are obvious are not being shared. And when I'm quiet or when I'm resting, I get a better picture of that. I hope that makes sense, but that's just some things that
Yeah.
I've been reflecting on.
Yeah, no, so that makes a lot of sense. Primarily, the so many people don't understand, like, there is so much gold in the silence. Like, once you quiet your mind enough, or once you quiet all of the external distractions long enough, you do get to focus in on, hey, does this make sense for me? Does this not? That's again another reason why I love Q4, because people will get quiet on you too, and they're not expecting as much. So you do get time to, like, hey, let me sit with myself. So I normally start my Q1 planning in Q end of Q3. So I know that sounds crazy. You're like, wait, but you skipped all over Q4. Let me explain. In September, I start to just outlining, nothing deep, dark, or difficult, just outlining, okay, what do I want to do in the next year? Who do I want to connect with? What major opportunities do I want to have? What events do I want to make sure I go to? Some are for social proof, so I can just socialize and bask in enjoyment. Some are for growth, business related, activities. But I just get super clear because, again, things tend to slow down for me in Q4. So I know, like, okay, this is a good time for me to start refining what is it I want. For those who work in corporate America, what relationships do you need to develop? Because the holidays are coming up, and there are quite a few holidays, depending on what folks' religious beliefs are. Okay, bet you get to, buy that card or buy those deck of cards, of holiday cards, to handwrite notes to the people who you want to, or relationships you want to nurture in the next year. Okay, you get to decide, what does it look like to show up for myself and supporting myself, because the holidays are too sometimes harder for a lot of folks. So what do you need to do to see who can you help during this time? So for me, it really, really is. It's a forecasting time for me, where I'm really looking at, what does this look like, to ensure that I am intentional about my life, that I'm intentional about my rest, that I'm intentional about my enjoyment, that I'm intentional about my growth, and that I'm intentional about me. So many folks are not intentional about themselves. So using your authentic voice also is an invitation to get real, real intentional about what it is that you say you want and need.
So true. We see the hand claps in the comments, and glad that this is resonating. And if you are joining us, whether you're watching this back on the replay, or if you're here joining us live on LinkedIn or on YouTube, let us know in the comments, what have been some of the challenges that you have faced when it comes to maintaining your authentic voice generally, and especially as we think about Q4, when, as you mentioned, Alicia, holidays are about to be in full swing, event after event after event, invitation after invitation after invitation, but also deadline after deadline after deadline, right? Like quarter close, year end reviews, which I want to just add, as you all are thinking and sharing your challenges with us in the comments. This is a great time for you as a leader, whether you are a leader of self, a leader of other people with direct reports, a leader of leaders, or a leader of your organization, to be thinking about how you are going to assess your performance over the year. And I'm speaking for a second beyond whatever your organizational practice is, right? Because from a talent management perspective, every organization does year-end reviews a little bit differently. So, but for you, right, as the owner of your career development, as the owner of your leadership development, one, how are you assessing yourself through the end of the year? And then two, how are you using your voice to speak up when that time does come for your year-end review, those year-end conversations with your leader, to ensure that, okay, yes, I'm maintaining my authenticity in terms of using my voice, but I'm also being proactive in demonstrating how I am being intentional in terms of my performance and my progress throughout the year. Yes to deadlines. Deadlines can get really, really, really scary. What about you, Alicia? What challenges come to mind when you think about leveraging your authentic voice?
So I'm thinking, usually one of the biggest challenges that come to mind in maintaining it is being willing to still ask for help or assistance or grace. And I know those are like, oh, that sounds like the same thing, and it's not. Help, assistance, and grace, those are three separate things. So being willing to ask for help, which means not feeling like I have to literally shoulder all of it. And sometimes help means, hey, I see, or hey, do you have bandwidth to assist, or not assist, but to take on? Because help for me is to give this piece to someone else. That is how I define help. Do you have capacity or bandwidth to take on this piece of whatever it is I'm working on? So that's the asking for help. That definitely can be a challenge, because most people are like, oh, I don't want to, be seen as incompetent, or I don't want it to be that people feel like, oh, I can't do it. So that's the help piece. Assistance, which is that second one, is okay, are you able to help me do this? Where we go into, connection, or into partnership or collaboration together, to where it's, hey, I can do this, but I just need a little bit of assistance to help me bring it over the finish line. And then the last one is grace. sometimes some stuff you just not gonna get done because the con about the Q4 is you don't have as much time to still sometimes get the same amount of things done. So it's also giving yourself and others grace, understanding that there are so many things happening in Q4 that everybody is kind of trying to rush to the finish line. And so giving yourself and others grace is another challenge that if you can figure out how to leverage your resources, it really will serve you well.
Such good tips. Such good tips. And I'll share from my point of view, and I'll speak a little bit more generally in terms of what I have observed. So last week, we facilitated a full day intensive last Friday, actually. It was a full day intensive for leaders on confident public speaking. And the audience in the room wasn't only people and leaders who were looking to like speak on stages. It was also people who are like, hey, I'm ready to move to the next level in my career, and I'm getting feedback about how I'm using my voice, speaking up, those sorts of things. And one of the things that I noticed when it comes to leveraging your authentic voice, especially for diverse talent. So, and when I say diverse talent, I mean women of all races, all ethnicities, at every intersection of sexual orientation as well, and also professionals of color, so including men as well. One of the things that I noticed with diverse talent, so non-white male talent, is oftentimes we overthink what it is that we want to say or need to say in almost like a need to be perfect, right? Or feeling like what we
Yep.
say needs to be perfectly crafted, perfectly said.
Yep.
And so, one of the things that I would encourage leaders, right, to do is to think about and think of yourself in two ways. One, of belonging where your feet are.
Yeah.
Every room that you're in, every Teams meeting, Zoom meeting that you're on, like really garnering this belief that I belong where my feet are. And then two, trusting your instinct, right? At this stage, like likely if you're listening to this live right now, you are a mid-career professional, right? You likely didn't just graduate college last May and you're in your first role. Like you're likely, you've been in your career, and I'll call it anywhere from 5 to 15 years. And so in my mind, what that signals is experience. What that signals is capacity and capability. And so all of those things are things that you can lean on to trust your instinct to say, if I think this thing, it doesn't have to be perfect before I say it. So I love that. Eric shared here, I schedule a one-on-one with my executive team to make sure my concerns are heard. I have over 20 years of corporate leadership in a Fortune 50 company, and I have to use it daily. I have to allow more grace because they just don't know the right way all the time. Yes, that is so good. Thank you, Eric, for sharing that with us. And that's so true. So true. So as we wrap up here, Alicia, what advice would you share for those leaders that are joining us today that might be, tapped into the replay or joining us live, that really want to say, hey, it's Q4 and I want to step it up a little bit, right? I'm expectant about what this quarter could bring, and I want to make sure that I'm leveraging my voice to show up authentically as a leader. What advice would you share?
So understand that just because it's the end of the year doesn't mean that it's no more time to do anything at all. There's absolutely still time. What I would suggest is, if there is one thing that you really have said you've wanted to do since the beginning of the year and you have not done, give yourself 48 hours to do something towards it. Is it finding the email of the person who you need to send the email to schedule time? Is it going to that person's office because they work in your organization and not having something perfect to say, like Brittany was just saying, but literally being willing to, you know what, hey, I noticed that you have been working on XYZ ABC. I would love to see how I can support in that manner. Because maybe you can flip the script if you want to take it up a notch. And just like, I was telling leaders to ask for help or assistance, offer the help or assistance. You have full power to control the outcome of your professional situation. And I don't care if people say, oh, but I can't control if someone lets me go, or I can't control this. True, you cannot control that. However, what you can control is the actions that you're taking to still craft what you want it to be. Your plan B can be to make plan A work, even if you have to take avenue C. It doesn't mean that you have to give up because one route didn't work. You can get down the street by going around the corner, by going straight there, by taking the boulevard, by taking the highway. There are multiple ways to get to your destination. So being willing to put forth the effort and the energy, and I know it's hard, especially when you're dealing with, let's say, challenges, whether they be physical, mental, emotional, or whatever it is, totally fine. But if you really want to step it up a notch, 48 hours, 48 business hours, and we at the start of the week, so that means you got till Wednesday to figure out what action you need to take to ensure that you are getting exactly what it is that you say you want by stepping it up a notch.
I love that 48-hour challenge. That is so good. And I would just say serving is a sustainability strategy. So as you think about what's next in your career and as we approach the holiday, you don't have to wait until the annual community service event around Thanksgiving to serve. Like the one of the best ways to quote unquote add value or to be useful to someone that you want to connect with or to help you to get closer to that destination is by understanding how you can help other people get ahead, right? And so thinking about using your voice in that way to go to your manager, right? To go to your people leader and say, listen, I understand this is the goal for Q4. How can I support you in reaching this? How can I help you is one of the most powerful questions that you can ask to make meaningful connections and sustainable connections that help you to move forward in your career. So I would just encourage those of us as we are embracing Q4, looking to use our voice maybe in bigger ways, more expansive ways, looking to elevate. Remember that service is one of the best ways to get you there, that not only reflects back on who you're helping and serving, but also is a way to amplify the work and the aspirations that you have as well. So I'm so glad that you all joined us. If y'all have questions, let us know. Gary, thank you so much for joining us. He said great nuggets of advice, which will help many navigate both the corporate and entrepreneurial world. And that's our hope, right? Because we both, Alicia and I, have robust experience in working inside of corporate, and now we get to partner with corporations to help them move their people up and along and to create cultures where people can thrive. So that is certainly our hope that has taken place. So it looks like we have a question.
Ooh, this is such a good one. And I'm going to give you a really great piece of advice, Eric, that was given to me when I was hosting an event called Career Day for the Soul. Shout out to Larnell Vickers. You are awesome, sir. And it was the head of inclusion for Sony Pictures. And the advice that she gave is one that I now give to every single person who is saying they want more diversity. For too many folks, they get tired of the D word. They call it the dreaded D word. So how you can get to what you want is instead of saying you want more diversity, instead say, I would really like to see how we can be a more inclusive culture, because it's something about using the word inclusion versus the word diversity that has a different feeling to it. And so what you can say is I would like to see what our inclusion strategy will be moving into this next year, as I've been doing my research and I've seen the positive impact that it has when organizations are more inclusive. And then you can work with your C-suite leaders and whomever else to craft an inclusion strategy that allows you to work with maybe the HR department to look in different places to recruit top tier talent. Whether that is, partnering with HBCUs if you're trying to get folks who are right out of college, or is that connecting with folks in your industry to tap into their top tier talent who is looking to move. That's honestly being on forums like this and saying, okay, what types of talent are you looking for and what levels are you looking for? And speaking to the types of inclusion you would like to see, because it is incredibly tough when you are the only person in the room. And I know for folks who have never had to experience that only might not understand what that feels like, but it can feel incredibly isolating when you look around and there's no one in there who has similar or lived experiences, because you immediately feel alone. Whether you agree with it or say, well, that's not how we make our people feel, it is not your job to decide how someone else's experience is felt. It is your job to acknowledge that, hey, we could do better at having more inclusive practices. Let's see what that looks like as it lines up to the overarching goals of the organization. That's usually how you're able to get things pushed through, when you align what your desires are using wording that they can accept and digest, and align it to what the bottom line looks like. So that's my suggestion. Brittany, I'm not sure if you have something different, and I know you got some good juiciness to add.
This has been the space that we've been in. So one, I just want to acknowledge Eric, this last sentence of being the only one, and it being tough. Like, one, thank you for sharing that here. And then, two, I want to acknowledge that, although I don't know exactly how you feel working at your organization, I certainly can relate to that experience of looking around, especially you mentioned being a corporate leader from a leadership perspective and not having anyone at that level. And it's not only so much that like you have someone at that level that looks like you, that'd be great, but really it gets down to this sense of like having people that understand that there is a difference between how you are experiencing being a leader at the organization and how your counterparts are experiencing being a leader at the organization. So I 110% agree with what Alicia shared. And what I would add to my why for that alignment is the fact that no one does diversity work. Career Thrivers doesn't do diversity work. Insert the top DEI consultant, DEI firm, they're not doing diversity work. And that's because diversity is a fact. It just is. So in essence, wanting more diversity is saying that you want more difference, and difference just exists. Like, the work that we're all trying to do is the work of inclusion, which asks the question, how are we being intentional about incorporating the difference that's here? Right. And then really what we're trying to drive towards is this equity question, which asks, what are the conditions in place such that we're maintaining the status quo, right? Like what we have. So when organizations say things like, I want to attract more diversity, or I want to retain more diversity, one, it's important to understand what they mean by that. But then two, it's important to understand what are the conditions that have kept what we currently are experiencing in place, right? And it's really not until you get to the bottom of that question that you're able to really not just attract great talent that happens to be diverse, but also that you sustain that talent, that you retain that talent. And so what I would say to you, Eric, and I hope it's some encouragement for you, and it may be a bit of a challenge, I would say to leverage your role, right? Because there's something different about raising the question from an entry level position than raising the question as a leader. And the other thing that I would say, and the last things, there's so much I could say on this topic, and would be happy to schedule some time offline to chat with you, is to do that, raise the question, right? Because and I'm not going to get I feel myself like wanting to go down a little path here, but I'll just succinctly say that asking questions is a way to help leaders, especially, identify what's being missed in the conversation or what changes can be made based on them coming up and identifying the opportunity versus you telling them that this is the opportunity. And that completely shifts. It's a slight shift, but it completely shifts and repositions then the solution, right?
Yes.
Because there's something different between me telling you that there's a problem than there is me asking you questions to help you illuminate the problem yourself, and then to be a partner with you in devising the solution. So I hope that you're following what I'm saying. I know I'm speaking a bit generally, but essentially I'm saying, think of some questions that you could ask, maybe like, hey, if you're newer at your organization, like what are some things that we've been doing over the last 3 years to impact the inclusion and representation and leadership at the organization? In what ways have those solutions been helpful? What challenges have we seen as we've looked at our inclusion strategy? What are some ways that we could work towards a more representative leadership team, at the table? So just maybe think of some questions that you could ask your leaders and maybe even your peers, right, to help them to become more aware of the challenge that's present. Yeah, Gary, you are spot on. Organizations are willing to accept DEI as they recognize the impact of the shift in demographics, but they are not the obstacle. The obstacle is the folks who are fearful of any of those letters, not just the D, but the E
Yes.
and the I. Yes, so true.
So
Awesome.
very true.
Glad that was helpful, Eric. I would love to chat offline. Your book was very good for me in transition into this new role, a new company. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing that, and congrats on your new. And I will say, I did peep real quick. I'm like, hold on, his subject is a little bit different. Like that's a different company than where I thought he was. So that's why I was leaning in a little bit on if you may be new to the organization. So yes, we'll be happy to chat. And Alicia, will you share as we wrap up? How people can stay connected with you, and y'all know we'll be back tomorrow, but I just want to make sure that those who are joining us today are watching this on the replay. And I would encourage you, if you are watching us live, tag a colleague in the comments, right? Share this with someone so they can join us in this conversation.
Absolutely. So you can stay connected with me all over Beyonce's internet. Literally, it is my name, and it is spelled so differently that when you Google it or type it in anywhere on Beyonce's internet, I come up. And yes, it is Beyonce's internet, just simply because of the impact that she has made with the Renaissance tour. It could be somebody else's internet once we get past, and I know the Renaissance tour is over, but once we get past like this phase, then it go back to being somebody else's internet. But for now, we're gonna say it's hers. But yeah, anywhere all over. You can go to rglpgroup.com. If you of course want to work in anything when it comes to staffing and everything else, it is right on my LinkedIn profile. But literally any and everywhere, all over. Alicia Reese, spelled Alechia, last name Reese, Reese.
Awesome. Awesome. So y'all make sure that y'all stay connected. I'm also putting the link into the comments, so y'all should see that there, and make sure that if you're right here joining us on LinkedIn, it's simple. Click the photo and follow along to make sure you don't miss anything from Alicia. And I am at Brittany N. Cole most places, and then you can connect with Career Thrivers, which is our leadership development firm. We specialize in learning and development to help organizations retain great talent. So anything from coaching to keynoting to building out curriculum that is tailored to the specific needs of your people. That's what we get to do. So make sure that you tune in, connect, follow along. And if you have any questions about the work that we do, you can go to careerthrivers.com/contact, and a team member would love to speak with you. All right. So I think that's it for today. Alicia, you have anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
No, this was so good. Make sure y'all share this, because of course you'll have the replay. So share it with some folks who you feel need to tap in to figure out how to leverage their authentic voice in Q4. We also, because we are on a 30-day challenge, we're either going live on LinkedIn or live on Instagram every day for the next, I don't know how many days it is now, but just know we're going to be here for a minute. Okay. We're going to be rocking and rolling with y'all for a minute. So share some of the other conversations that we've had. We promise there is so much value in them. And thank y'all for rocking with us, rocking and rolling. I think it is 21 days left. I think. Don't make me lie. I'm not sure.
I know. I feel like we've done. Maybe not. We'll let y'all know. We'll let y'all know. But thank y'all so much for joining us. Gary, thank you so much for being here. Eric, appreciate what you all added to the conversation today. Kiera, and we will see y'all on the next one.
Bye y'all. See you tomorrow.